You twisted their words by quoting them? So we called it. We totally called it. Here's a little background. Our show with Michael Anton, who is a solid conservative, who exposed this project called the Transition Integrity Project. It's a group of prominent liberals who called for some really, really insane stuff after the election, or war game stuff, and called for a street fight, not a legal one, after the election. Michael Anton's been warning about that stuff. Letters to our military to escort Trump out of the White House. These are all serious things that these are written by liberals, by the way. Military guys, get Trump out of the White House. We need a street fight, not a legal one, after the election. I'm just citing their words, by the way. Prominent Democrat lawyer during the impeachment thing, Mark Zaid. The coup has started. Rebellion. Their words. We're just citing them, right? We had them panicked. My shows on the coming coup, that was the title of the article by Anton, went nuclear. It was seen by everyone. Now, of course, the tech tyrants, in conjunction with their speech suppression advocates at the New York Slimes, they can't have that because they hate free speech. The New York Times is Pravda. It's worse than Pravda. At least Pravda was honest about being dishonest. The New York Times pretends they're actual journalists. So this sleazy reporter over there, Davey Alba, who was texting me and begging me for a quote, thinking like we weren't onto her disinformation schemes. That's what she does. She's a disinformation specialist. Thinking we weren't onto her, decided she was going to be the one to write the story we knew was coming. The story being what? Dan Bongino and Mark Levin exposed left-wing violence? No, that wasn't the story. All of a sudden, the left-wing violence we exposed, we're responsible for their calls to violence. This is actually in the New York Times. You don't believe me? Here was the story, came out last night by this sleazy fake news specialist, Davey Alba. She writes, riled up, misinformation stokes calls for violence on election day. This is great. We're quoting the left calls for violence, and it's misinformation, and we're calling for violence, talking about them calling for violence. If you're like, I think so. Every other sane person on the planet is. This is it. This is the classic Republicans pounce. You know, Republicans pounce. I've talked about this over and over. I warned you this was coming. Did I not tell you that this woman was a sleazeball and was going to do a total disinformation campaign and blame us for exposing leftist calls for violence? And she put it right in the headline. You don't even have to read the rest of the article. Her piece gets worse. You know, Republicans pounce, right? Where Democrats do something wrong and get caught. We caught them tweeting about a coup. Folks, Mark Zaid, Democrat lawyer, coup. Look it up. Involved in the impeachment hoax. Calling for a coup and a rebellion. Look it up yourself. Don't take my word for it. You're not going to get that from Sleazy Alba. The Transition Integrity Project. Writing about a street fight, not a legal one. I'll show you the document. The guy who runs the Transition Integrity Project calling for the death of Michael Anton, who exposed them on my show. None of this is in her story at all. It's about us covering it. This is hilarious. These people are so sleazy. From the piece. This is just great. This is great. In a video on September 14th, Dan Bongino, right-wing commentator, declared the Democrats were planning a coup against Trump on Election Day. Bongino talked about bipartisan election experts who had met in June. She's talking about the Transition Integrity Project to plan for what might happen after the vote was held to support my baseless claim. We quoted them. We quoted them to support his baseless claim. He twisted the group's words to fit his meaning. Twisted the group's words. You mean by quoting them? We'll have to quote them again because now. Listen, this will probably be banned by the total sleazeballs at Google and YouTube because they do not want you to see what the left is actually talking about. So now by quoting them, we're twisting their words. This is this human sleaze at the New York Times. Here's part 2 of this. She goes on, it's our fault for quoting the left's calls for a, quote, street fight, not a legal one after the election. It's our fault now. Check this out. It gets even better. I mean, this is the peak of human sleaze. Of all the rumors. Rumors, by the way, she's calling rumors. We quoted them. Of all the rumors all the rumors appear to be having the same effect of of riling up Mr. Trump's restive base. So just to be clear, you're responsible. This is your fault. So us talking about the left's calls for violence, a coup, death threats, and calling for a street fight, it all has the effect of making you upset. Therefore, you're at fault for their violence. You can't make this up. You cannot make this up. The level of degeneracy in the media is so profound. And by the way, I totally busted her. She's running scared right now in panic. Wait till you see what I caught her doing. Now she's protected her tweets. Sleazy Alba. Because she knows she's totally busted. Watch who she was in cahoots with a minute as she does this total hack job, disgusting, filthy hit piece, trying to blame you, the restive Trump base, for leftist violence. As if Antifa, BLM, the coup language, the street fight language, and the actual death threat didn't happen. She covers none of that in her piece. None of it. This is hilarious. Here's part 3 of her story. So first is we twisted the words. Second is it's your fault the leftists are causing violence or asking for violence. Now, here's her appeal to Facebook and YouTube and the tech tyrants because they're speech suppressing Soviet losers to get rid of our information, exposing them of the lies. The lies, folks. She calls them lies. Someone needs to sue this woman. Somebody, please. Facebook said it was removing calls for interference or violence at polling place. Okay, none of that's on my, see, I don't know what she's even talking about. And would label posts that sought to delegitimize the results. Here we go. YouTube, ScrewTube, back it again. Now you know why I'm in an investor in Rumble, right? ScrewTube, she says, YouTube said it was not recommending videos containing the false rumors. The false rumors. This is hilarious. This is hilarious. Because she's a Soviet, she doesn't like it that our show, The Coming Coup, exposing the left, she doesn't like it that you get to read about what they're doing. So a New York Times sleazeball acting as a journalist is now making her appeal to ScrewTube, which dutifully applies, to now make sure the videos aren't seen by anyone. Now you see why I'm begging you to use Rumble and not YouTube? Because YouTube's a scam. It's a monopoly run by Google, and it's a scam. It is an anti-competitive, antitrust violating crap company, ScrewTube, that will screw you over at the first opportunity because some sleazy, no-follower New York Times fake news reporter didn't like it that we quoted the left's calls for violence and warned everyone about what they were doing in an effort to avoid the violence. But ScrewTube will censor us because this loser asked them to. You may be like, this can't get any worse. No, ladies and gentlemen, it does. We actually quoted the Transition Integrity Project. These anti-Trump hacks, calls for a, quote, street fight, not a legal one. Their words, not mine. Where was that in her story? Nowhere. Nowhere. She cites all these random, ridiculous things about the Transition Integrity Project, but doesn't mention that the guy running it, by the way, has issued a death threat. And she goes to this other guy, Trey Grayson, for a quote. She's like, the guy's like, no, that's all crazy talk. We're not calling for a coup. We just quoted you. She leaves it. The street fight line is nowhere in her story. Anywhere. Nowhere. So now she said first that we twisted the group's words. We did. Well, did we twist page 11 of the Transition Integrity Project's manifesto? You know, page 11, bullet 2 up here on the screen now, where it says planners need to take seriously the notion this may well be a street fight, not a legal battle. They also eliminate other things like technocratic solutions, courts, and a reliance on elites observing norms. They say, quote, that is not the answer here. So just to be clear, Sleazy Alba, fake news Soviet Pravda reporter. We're twisting their words? Those are their words. Those are their words. Do you know what that means, a quote? I know your IQ is very low. That's why you're at the New York Times. I get that. You probably believe the pee-pee tape too. But how did we twist their words by quoting them? A group of prominent anti-Trumpers, these are not ham and eggers, these are prominent liberals and anti-Trumpers, got together and put out a document saying that the fight after the election is going to be a street fight. And then they eliminate, in case you're confused about what that means, they're like, we don't mean a technocratic one. We don't mean one driven in the media by elites. And we don't mean a legal one. No, they literally mean a street fight. That's in Davy Alba's story, right? Paula, why are you leaving that out? She doesn't want to quote the whole story. Why are you leaving that out? The answer is she's not leaving it out. It's nowhere in the story. Because Davy Alba's a sleazeball and doesn't want to tell you what we actually did, which is quote them themselves. We didn't twist anything. You twisted their words by quoting them?
You just heard Dan Bongino.